I am a member of Malika Kambi and Fazi Sorority Incorporated, as well as the past National Vice President. While you can read about MKU on our website, I would like to share with you all that Malika Kambi and Fazi Sorority Incorporated is an organization of women committed to global change. We are excited about the opportunity to partner with like-minded organizations. MKU was started in 1995 at the University of Buffalo in Buffalo, New York, and has thus spread across the East Coast, and eventually we're moving forward across the nation as we enter into our expansion projects, where you can learn more about on our national website. We're really excited about the opportunity to partner this evening with our national philanthropy, MADRE, in welcoming you all to learn more about a very compelling and timely issue within our world today.
Peace and love, everybody. This is Dr. Takiyah Amin. I am really pleased to be here with you tonight to address this pressing, prevalent issue. I am Assistant Professor of World Dance at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. I am also immediate past president of MKU Sorority Incorporated, joined by Diana Duarte, who's the communications director for MADRE, and Natalia Caruso, program director for MADRE. Natalia, I'm going to address this first question to you. We know that MADRE is an internationally respected women's human rights organization. We know that the organization has been working on behalf of the rights of women and girls since 1983. What can you share with us about the scope of MADRE's work on behalf of women and girls in East Africa in particular? What is MADRE doing on the ground in East Africa?
Recently, we have supported a long-term partner, Womenkind Kenya, where we have been supporting them in some international arena efforts. And in particular, in the context of the famine, we have been able to provide some support to this local group. Womenkind Kenya is a Somalian pastoralist organization working very hard in providing support to the families that they are arriving to Kenya, being displaced from Somalia and sort of running away from the crisis that people in Somalia are facing. So they're working in the communities in the northeastern part of Kenya, and we are very pleased to be working with them because we know about them, we know it's a reliable organization, and we know they understand the context in which this whole crisis is happening. So we know they will be able to address the immediate needs of the emergency, but also try to establish some long-term strategies and responses so this things could be, avoided or even be better prepared to respond to emergencies like this.
My next question, Diana, is for you. Can you give our listeners just a picture of the extent of the damage that the famine is having in Somalia and surrounding nations and what the human toll is right now? Just sort of give us a picture of what that looks like in terms of the extent of the damage. One of the things that I've been concerned about is that the news coverage of this hasn't been here in the U.S. nearly as broad as I personally, and I know several of my colleagues, wish it was. There are sort of all this news about celebrities getting married and reality TV as opposed to looking at what the UN is calling the world's worst humanitarian crisis. So can you paint a picture for us of what's happening on the ground?
Well, I can certainly do my best to do that. I think that what's really difficult is how hard it is really to imagine the horror of what the situation is for so many famine refugees, for those of us who don't have to live it, for those of us who have the privilege of not having to go through that. And I think that you all did a really good job in the introduction of laying out some of, what are some of these just mind-boggling numbers that we've been seeing in recent weeks and months of what the toll is. One piece of information that we came upon recently is that in the past 90 days alone, nearly 30,000 children have died. And these are children who have died as a result of the famine, as a result of the drought. And those numbers are illuminating to a certain extent, and they sort of give us a sense of what the scale is. But I think that what has been more sort of effective in, at least for me, and I know for a lot of the people here in the office, is being able to hear directly from our partners who are on the ground, who are having relationships and reaching out to families that are in dire need of help, and they're able to tell us the stories of the real life people that they're talking to. And sometimes just having that sort of story is more, in some ways, effective than hearing the huge numbers. Natalia was recently in Kenya, and so she shared with us some of the feedback and information she was able to gather from our partners there. But there's stories about women who when they realized that there was nothing left for them in their homes and their villages in Somalia, gathered up their children and began this weeks-long trek, hoping that they would be able to reach Kenya, where there are these refugee camps that have been set up, and this was their last hope of survival. And just these horrific stories of women who've had to, bury their children along the way. And so when they arrive, they are already traumatized not only by the famine, by the real physical pain of hunger and thirst, but the emotional pain of having left their children behind, having lost their children. And I think that keeping that in mind really, and just when you multiply that by the scale of what I was just talking about, that you talk about one story of a woman who's lost her children, or one story we heard about a woman who lost all 4 of her children, and then you multiply that over the entire region and all of the communities that are affected by that, and it really starts to hit you what destruction this famine is wreaking. One thing that I also feel like has not gotten nearly enough attention in the media coverage about the effects of this famine is the particular effects that it's been having on women and girls. Women and girls who, whenever a disaster strikes anywhere, are always the most vulnerable. We've seen that in the many years that MADRE has been responding to disasters, whether they're famines or the earthquake in Haiti or the tsunami a few years back in the Indian Ocean. Every time you have a major disaster like this, inevitably you see that women and girls are particularly vulnerable. And the aspect that I wanted to highlight that hasn't been covered in the media is the aspect of sexual violence. And this was something that our partners at Womankind Kenya were really emphasizing, that women, as they make these treks, over weeks trying to reach safety, are oftentimes attacked, robbed, and even raped along the way. And that this is something that's not getting nearly enough attention. And what that also means is that when they arrive in the refugee camps, they often are not being able to access the kind of service and care and support that they would need, particularly women who face these kinds of attacks. So that's one of the things that our partners have been able to not only recognize but begin to respond to and to be able to receive women with the care that they need.
I want to shift a little bit, because one of the things that I know can become sort of overwhelming, especially for those of us who feel a need to want to bring about positive change in the world and to work with like-minded individuals who have similar commitments, it's sometimes overwhelming to know where to begin or what to do or how to help. So, and either of you can address this, what are 3 things that each one of us can do right now, tomorrow, in a week, in the next day or so, that will have the most impact on the region at this time? For those of us who really want to help and really want to make sure that we're supporting the positive efforts that have been directed toward this crisis, what are 3 things that each one of us can do to have an impact in that region?
Well, I'll take this question. I'll lay claim to this question. So the first thing I would want to say is sort of, reiterating what we've said before, which is supporting grassroots organizations like Womankind Kenya. And, MADRE, we are here and we're available for people who want to, channel their support to Womankind Kenya through us. So I would really, encourage people to visit our website. There's information there about how you can get involved, how you can contribute. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize in this is really the effectiveness of Womankind Kenya. When you contribute to them through MADRE, they are able to turn that around and take life-saving action that saves people's lives today, and also that they have a vision for rebuilding communities in that region long into the future. So when you support Womankind Kenya, you're supporting an organization that's there for the long haul and is doing just incredible work day to day. So if people want to go to our website, which is MADRE.org, they can find out more about that there. The second thing that I really wanted to emphasize is that we spread the word. Like one of the things that you mentioned before is that this had sort of a blip in the news cycle, and then it really has just faded away. And that's it's not really acceptable at all, but we can all try to combat that by using our social networks, our Facebook and Twitter, and just our own personal networks. And the third thing I wanted to highlight is something we haven't really gotten that much into right now, but the political background of this famine. We talk about famine and we use the word natural disaster, which I think sort of detracts from the reality that a lot of these so-called natural disasters have very human-made roots, and that you can trace the origins of these kinds of disasters to policies that were put in place that have destroyed communities as a result. So I would point out the current situation that we have globally and also nationally when it comes to our climate change debate. You look at the drought in East Africa that's been going on for years and only recently was, triggered what has been classified as a famine, but it's been going on for years. And you look at the very clear connections between that and climate change, which brings about these extreme weather events. In the meantime, we don't really have a national or global political plan for curbing our carbon emissions, which, in this country, our own carbon emissions are a huge culprit in creating the climate change that is threatening people's lives all over the world. So we should be taking action on a political level to really push our representatives, to push our governments to do the right thing, essentially, and take real action to curb carbon emissions.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, folks, we've had an opportunity to hear about what's happening on the ground. We've had an opportunity to learn more about MADRE and their efforts, not just in the short term, but what they're committed to doing long term. We've heard about the international partners that they are working with. I'm on fire. I'm on fire, and I hope that you are to continue not only educating yourself about this issue, but spreading the word about it and making some kind of contribution of money, of time, of resources to help address this crisis. Natalia and Diana, I want to thank you so much